Hey guys, I'm Cameron Tastad, and this is my Psych 101 presentation. I'm going to be covering pages 341 through 344, and I'll be going over and discussing retrieval failure, interference, motivated forgetting, and memory construct errors. So I'm unable to pull up my slides with this video, but if you could follow along, that would be great. So I'm going to go into my first slide, which is about retrieval failure. So most of the time we think that when we can't remember a specific memory, it's because we have forgotten it, but we have found that that in fact is not true. Forgetting is not memories just fading away, but rather memories being unretrieved. We store most of our important events and memories in our long-term memory storage, but sometimes we can't access them due to retrieval problems. And we can see these retrieval problems more prominent in aging adults. Like you see them being able to remember certain events or memories. And this retrieval failure just happens when information cannot be accessed, which eventually then leads to the process of forgetting the actual events and memories. My next slide is about interference. So there's actually two different types of interference. The first being proactive and the second being retroactive. And proactive interference is the forward acting disruptive effect of prior learning on the recall of new information. So an example of this is like let's say you're remembering a family member's new phone number after previously learning an old phone number. So you know your mom's cell phone number, she gets a new number, and now you're trying to relearn her number, and the old cell phone numbers are kind of getting jumbled up with the new one that you're trying to learn. And the second type of interference is retroactive interference, which is pretty much the opposite of proactive. So it's the backward acting disruptive effect of a new learning on the recall of old information. So an example is like, you could be calling your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend by your new boyfriend or girlfriend's name. That would be a problem, but that's an example of retroactive interference. So next on my third slide, I am going to be talking about a retroactive interference experiment that was done by John Jenkins and Carl Dallenbach. And pretty much what they did is they had two people in the study, and they had these two people remember a set of random syllables, and they gave them the syllables and then put one person to sleep, and the other person had to stay awake and do certain random activities for 8 hours. And as the graph shows, if you look at my slides, there's a graph there, that forgetting occurred more frequently in the person that was awake and having to go through all these activities, which in conclusion, Jenkins and Dallenbach found that forgetting is most associated with interference and inhibition. So the interference being keeping or adding other activities and learning things like that that they put them through, and then the inhibition being the not being able to sleep and having to stay awake for 8 hours rather than being able to let your mind rest. All right. Moving on to my next slide, I'm going to be talking about motivated forgetting. So motivated forgetting is the psychological behavior in which people may forget unwanted memories, either consciously or subconsciously. And this is because that forgetting can happen at any point of the memory stage. And due to the fact that when we process information, we kind of filter it and alter it, memories can also be forgotten as a defense mechanism to repress negative, traumatic, or anxiety-filled memories or thoughts. And this is called repression. And like I mentioned, it's basically just another way of our mind protecting ourselves from traumatic events or things that had happened that you want to forget about. And for my final slide, I'm going to be talking about memory construct errors. So our memory isn't always as precise as we may think it is. So when we try to retrieve memories, we sometimes will reweave them or modify them slightly, and this is called reconsolidation when we do this act. I'm going to be talking about an example that was designed by Elizabeth Loftus. So what Loftus did was she showed a handful of individuals' faces, so kind of like a lineup or like a police lineup when you're trying to choose who did the crime or things like that. She basically did that. So she gave them faces that were to be picked out later. She then showed pairs of faces, pairs of faces. So there were two faces. One of them that was already shown previously, and the second one was a new face that hadn't been shown at all. And then she asked for them to identify which face they had previously seen. And included in one of those pairs, there was one pair that had two new faces. One of the faces had similar features to one of the faces that was shown at the very beginning. And the second face just was a completely random new face. And each participant that was involved in this study each chose that similar looking face as the one that was seen earlier. Of course, this was wrong because both of them were not shown. But at the end of the experiment, she showed the original face and the wrongly chosen face, the one with the similar characteristics that everyone picked as one that was shown, and then the original face that was actually shown at the beginning of the study. And each of the participants chose the wrong face. So this is showing that the memory was reconsolidated. So that is the end of my slides. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you could follow along with my slides as I spoke to you.